Yo, 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 what is going on, CoD Familia? It is your boy BN, aka Mr. Kingdom Builder. And today, I wanted to talk about initial kingdom population, where you are hoping that new kingdoms will be populated with a healthy number of players in the very beginning. So that way, the kingdoms won't appear to be, I don't want to say dead because that's pretty extreme, but let's just say low activity, low engagement, low social media interaction, or we should say socialization or social engagement when it comes to posting in world chat, in your alliance chats, etc. This is something that I can tell you has come around a few times where in some kingdoms we have seen where, for example, they did not hit the first Augerstone chapter of Faith Above All, which is you need 7,500 players/lords that must upgrade their cities to level 4 by the end of the countdown. Now, this is somewhat uncommon. It doesn't usually happen all that often, where it's something like a frequent type basis. But this is what I would consider when we're talking about, well, how are new kingdoms being populated, right? I like to believe there's two pieces of criteria that really factor into this more than others. Even though we don't necessarily know what that exact criteria is, we can kind of read between some of the lines. So the first one, and this is probably the biggest, is that kingdoms, from what we understand, have a threshold. And what that means is that a kingdom can be set on the developer can go on the back end and they can just say, okay, well, once we have 20,000 players that have populated into the kingdom, meaning they've made a character, and let's say as an example, they've made it at least past the tutorial. Every person who makes it past the tutorial will count as one. Once that number gets to 20,000, then a new kingdom will be populated. Now, the other side of it is that it's that plus this, the Faith Above All, or sometimes kingdoms will have, if it's an Augerstone chapter, some other type of prerequisite or goal that they need to hit, like this, where you'll say, okay, well, we need to have at least 20,000, well, like they might say we need to have at least, keyword at least, 20,000 players that have made it past the tutorial, plus 7,500 lords that have reached level 4. Once these two things happen, then we'll go ahead and release the next new kingdom. So that's kind of figuring out, right, what they may go off of. However, the reason I believe that all of this really is just generally connected to what I would consider to be game health. And the idea being that the more players that you have that are downloading and playing your game, on top of players that are playing for a long period of time, and then potentially, thirdly, those that are, and this is somewhat connected to two, but those that are retaining or being retained within the game because of the replayability factor, which is kind of like a loose off version of two. And this is all just to say that if you have a great game and you have enough social interaction and you have enough appeal, enough quality features that are attracting players within a specific genre, right, they're going to continue playing your game and draw in more players. And on top of that, it makes you more money, right, as a company, because the more players that you have continuing to play your game and to sustain, right, over a long period of time, the better off you're going to do. And so I think a large chunk of this really starts with how kingdoms start out. With, again, how healthy are they going in? And so when I think about these, right, quote unquote, right, potential factors that go into how kingdoms are populated before a new kingdom comes out, I think to myself, okay, well, let's say that's the case. We really can't do anything about the first one because we don't necessarily know, for all intents and purposes, like what that threshold is. But we do know what this one is, right? As this potential one, we should say, which is, right, 7,500 lords must upgrade their cities to level 4 by the end of the countdown. My proposal, my idea really, is what if we increased, instead of the number, we increased the city level from 4 to something like 12, right, as an example. Because once you hit 12, right, I believe that's when your region relocation item is then, right, you can't use them anymore. You have to use it at 11 or below. And once you hit 12, you almost know, first off, you can hit 12 within a day, right, or let's just say within a 24-hour period, right, if you're playing constantly, you're waiting for max helps, and then you're upgrading your city hall level and you're kind of min-maxing to 12, which basically just means that you're doing, after you upgrade a city hall level, you're just only doing your prerequisites to get to the next level. You're not upgrading a bunch of other stuff before you then upgrade your city hall level, or better yet, things that are not required for you to upgrade in order to upgrade the city hall level, we'll say. And so from here, if we upgraded it as an example to 12, this to me does a few things. One, it makes it so that you know without a doubt in your mind that there's a higher percentage chance that players who are that are leveling their account to 12 are more likely to play longer, which is loosely factored into number 2, meaning that if you have someone that just makes it to level 4, it doesn't really take that long to make it to level 4. And there's no guarantee of knowing if those players that make it to level 4 are going to keep playing after. And this is obviously the case regardless of what level they're at. But the higher the level a player has to grind to reach, the more likely they are to keep playing for a longer period of time. Why? The argument is like, why would you have someone who's going to, level to 12, which is basically halfway to 25, even though, yes, that isn't accurate for the amount of overall speed ups and time that you're going to have to do because, again, it exponentially increases, right, from each level to each level. But making it to 12 does increase the likelihood that these players will play the game longer. And if they're willing to play the game longer, right, for the players that are getting in because the kingdoms are being populated in a more healthy way or a more healthy populated way, then that means that the kingdoms will be more active. If they're more active, there's more socializing, there's more engagement, there's more activity. And these are things that I think will all bleed over into a game such as Call of Dragons, being able to have better sustainability over a period of time, and then hopefully in turn will mean that they can make more money from the game, right? Or from the players because they're having more people that are playing longer, and because of that, kingdoms are lasting and surviving longer as well because of them being populated. Even if you look at kingdoms such as 31, 32, 33, 34, right? These kingdoms were heavily populated after upon and then after global release, to where you even if you look at them now, right? Sure, have they thinned out a bit? Of course. But they're still very healthy in their overall activity. And that's really what we're talking about, right? Is trying to almost kind of get kingdoms to that type of a position. Doesn't mean that they need to be overcrowded. But putting kingdoms in a position to be successful because of the amount of players that are there, I think is very important. Now, let me say on the other side, I don't inherently believe that there's anything wrong with the way that the current system is. I just would rather have a little bit more of a reassurance that each kingdom is being populated in either a fairer way or a fair way, because we don't know how kingdoms are being populated, right? So if they came out and they said, hey, this is how we populate kingdoms, and we read that and we said, okay, well, hey, that's pretty fair, right? Scratch this. However, because we don't know what those things are, I always find it very interesting to kind of speculate based on what we know or little bits of pieces of information that we kind of get here and there, along with what we visually see happening in each kingdom. And, for someone like myself, for those that might be wondering, I have an account in essentially every kingdom, right? So you can look at all my stuff. It goes all the way to 202. You can even see as of recording this video, I don't think 203 is released yet. It hasn't, right? 202 is at a day and a half. So, for me, I like to look at these things, and I always think it's great and very important to do our research and to go out there and to study and to ask questions and to try and look for trends and then analyzing those trends, right? Or checking for data, pulling it, and then analyzing that data. I think it's a great way for us to learn more about the game. And I'm not even saying necessarily that, this idea is absolutely foolproof and it's going to work, because I do think one drawback on it could be, as I was, because I always try to look at the pros and cons of things, is for me, I think one drawback is that if you set the city hall level higher, well, and you make that kind of a co-primary requirement, right, in this theoretical example, before New Kingdom's released, well, you could end up overcrowding some of the kingdoms, right, where it becomes kind of a 31, a 32, 33, 34 situation, probably more so 31, 32, but you can put yourself in that situation where because you're waiting to release a new kingdom until you have the 7,500 people hitting level 12, right? Maybe you double it. Instead of 4, you just go to 8, right? Or maybe you go to 7, where you can get to the Augerstone chapter, right? For me, I think what I'm overall trying to get at is just being able to populate kingdoms in a little bit more of a healthy way, or I should say having a little bit more population, which I believe will in turn lead to a more sustainable and healthier kingdom in the long run, right? Or at least give you the opportunity or the chance to. So that's my idea. Those are my thoughts on both sides. I would love to know what you guys think, right? Do you, if the assumption is that they have to hit a threshold and or the Augerstone Chapter 1 is playing a factor until a new kingdom is released, do you like the way that it is right now where it's, let's say, the kingdom has to populate to 20, 25, 30,000 players have to download, make it past the tutorial, and or that 7,500 players have to reach level 4 before a new kingdom is released, even though we know that this one isn't a demand or it's not a requirement because we've seen kingdoms released before without this Augerstone chapter being reached at 7,500. But I'd love to know your thoughts. Do you like the way things currently are? Do you like maybe the suggestion I provided? Do you have a different opinion? Let me know in the comments down below. That's going to do it for me. As always, until next time, I will catch you later.